Hi. Hello. Good evening. Twins, are you there? I think he's there. He's joining us soon. He'll be here in a moment. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you for joining another episode of. Hold on one second here. I don't know what's going on. Un momento. Okay, this is Twin saying he's coming, so I'm gonna start. I'm a little tanned this evening. I just got back from Jamaica, which was um, absolutely amazing. I needed the vacation away from life here in Toronto. I'm also having to move in a couple of months, so I came back and I started having to deal with that. Just a lot of stuff going on. But if you've never been to Jamaica, I recommend going. It was amazing. There were 18 of us for my niece and nephew's birthday. I had a great time. So I am back. I am ready to go. So again, visit Jamaica if you haven't. I hope everybody's weekend was amazing. We are actually headed into Caravana weekend here in Toronto, Canada, where I live. It is the largest Caribbean festival outside of the Caribbean. So again, if you've never been to Toronto, you definitely need to come and experience Carnival. That's what you Americans, I think, call it as Carnival, but it's Caravana over here for us. Hey, twins, he's here. I was just chatting to myself.
I'm here. Go ahead, continue. Caravana's coming up.
Yes, Caravana is coming up this weekend, so I will hopefully have some exciting stories, videos. Actually, I'm going to be taking a lot of videos over the weekend and posting it, making a compilation so you can see life here in Toronto. I wish I'd taken more videos in Jamaica. I think I was more enjoying than I was videoing.
Right, exactly. You was definitely enjoying the moment in Jamaica. Blup, blup, blup.
there is a lot of that, and with 18 people it's tough to kind of capture. There's just so much was going on, like so much was going on, but I was happy to have done it. I wish it was longer, but I'm here. How was your weekend?
I worked Saturday, so my weekend consists of one day of Sunday off, and I just rest all Sunday. I got home from work on Saturday. I cut the grass, so Sunday was in my PJs, Netflixing, chilling, relaxing, sleeping, nothing.
Do you remember when we actually wanted to be adults? I can't wait till I grow up.
Oh
I don't
man,
have to deal with this shit.
I want to go back.
Um, hmm.
I want to go back. Can I go back, please? I want to be a kid again. No responsibility, no
Yeah,
bills,
yeah,
no struggles, just
yeah.
kid life.
Yeah, I blame my parents. I didn't ask for this shit. I blame them. They're to blame for all of this. Okay, so I say all the time. I'm like, I didn't ask for this. I tell my daughter all the time. I was like, keep being a child. She's 22 and she's not quite an adult yet in my mind because she still lives under my roof. I pay her bills. I do what's necessary. I am not rushing my daughter outside of the house. Mister Wagwan. I am not rushing my daughter out of the house. I know that's what you're supposed to do. They turn 18. You want them to be independent. No, I want her to hold on to these purse strings as long as she possibly can because I want her life to be better than mine and for her not to have the struggles that I have had and the lessons that I've had to learn. I am teaching her the lessons. So when she gets out into the world with my future son-in-law and has my grandkids, that her life is set a little bit better than mine was set when I had her. That's my goal.
Look at you, got her life all planned out. You already talking about grandbabies and everything.
Absolutely. I don't see the need for her to really be out in these streets just living a single life. No, although she laughs at me all the time because she's headed to the UK. She's looking to go to the UK for a couple of years because we've got a UK Canada visa that she can do up until you're 35. Like it's like 6 weeks. Like it's like no time. You pay some money, they do a background check, whatever, and you can get a 2-year visa. And she told me she may not come back. And I kind of slid on the wall and have to have a conversation with her father about what our life will look like if our baby girl is not in the same country with us. But that's no, neither here nor there. Okay. Okay, we'll just see how that goes. Although part of me wants my freedom, I say a lot of that. Part of me, like, I've been a mom since I was 21, and there's part of me that like wants that freedom of being an empty nester and what that feels like, and the other half is just like, I'm not ready to let her go. So we shall see.
Got you, got you. Also, just quick disclaimer: it's storming like crazy outside. Of course, you don't hear anything, but if for some reason my stuff go offline, I will try to switch to my cell phone. Just FYI, but we're good
Oh
right
my goodness. Are you guys okay over there?
now. Oh yeah, we're straight. A little rain hurt nobody.
We've
Rain,
had
rain,
a lot.
go away.
We've had a lot here in Toronto. Like we've actually had a lot here in Toronto. Mr. said, hopefully you taught her how to cook good oxtail with rice and peas. Her grandmother actually taught her how to cook the oxtail because I'm not as good as my mother. My mother is amazing. The rice and peas, yes, but the oxtail, like oxtail is, ugh. It sometimes it's a hit or miss for me. It's always a hit for my mom. So my mom is the one who's big on the oxtail. But yeah, my daughter's good when she goes out into the
How
sport.
about the
She'll
jerk?
be all right.
How about the jerk chicken?
Jerk chicken, yes, yes,
You did
yes,
good,
yes.
mom. You did good. You did good.
Yeah, you got to teach them certain things. So anywho, this topic was inspired by last week's actually dating tip by twins. And I had a bit of a reaction to Twins' comment, and I'm actually going to play a clip from last week of me reacting to Twins' advice from men. And I wanted to have this topic because it is one that I personally struggle with as a woman that we'll talk about it. And I really want to get the male perspective on this because there are a lot of unhealed people in the dating pool. And if you're somebody who's worked on your healing, who's invested the time, the energy, and sometimes the money into healing yourself, how do you deal with an unhealed person? So here is my clip that I'm just going to quickly play of me reacting to what Twins had said. Give me one moment. What you're talking about is coming into something unhealed and somebody having patience as you heal yourself. That kind of that's what I'm hearing. And I think I find that difficult because at our big age, you should be able to recognize that you are unhealed and that you need to take a step back before bringing your unhealed backside into somebody else's life. That's where I find that I don't want to deal with your unhealed trauma. I don't want to deal with your mother wounds, especially if you won't deal with it and recognize it. Like it's one thing if you come and you're vulnerable and you say, listen, I never saw a good woman in my life, right? My mother did not show me an example of what a good woman was. This is what I had to experience. And because our mothers and fathers, our first love, the relationship I have with love based on the relationship I had with my mother, I have to work on it. I need you to know this. As opposed to the man who comes who doesn't recognize that that's an issue and therefore is not working on it. I feel the same way. Like I am very proud and happy to say almost every single woman that I associate with myself with has a father. And I, despite my father not marrying my mother, like I said before, he raised me for the first 9 years of my life. So and even after that, my father was very instrumental. Rest in peace, Daddy. And so I don't necessarily understand the wounds of a woman who did not grow up with a father in the house, who did not have that. And so I tend to have a little less patience, and that's something that I would have to work on. I tend to have a little less patience because, again, at our big age, you start realizing that you're exhibiting characteristics or traits that are not desirable to the person that you want. So this ideal man comes into this life of this unhealed woman. How much patience does he need to have with a 40-something-year-old woman with unhealed daddy issues? Like how much patience am I supposed to have with a 40-something, almost 50-year-old man who has unresolved issues with his mommy?
Ooh,
How much?
That was a lot to that's a lot there. We're gonna have to unpack tonight. That's a lot.
How much? How how much patience? Because that was Twins' advice, which was good advice last week. But I don't know, for me, I think it definitely triggered me. And I don't use that word often. It's not a word actually that I enjoy, but there's certain things that I went, I respect a patient man. I do. I pray for a patient man. I actually pray for a patient man. It's going to take a patient man in my life, right? However, to what extent and how much patience do you have with someone who has either not recognized their trauma or recognizes their trauma but hasn't gotten help for it? Because I can understand when we're in our 20s and we don't know anything. Let's be clear. We didn't know anything in our 20s. Your brain doesn't even fully develop until you're 25. So I was 21 raising a child with an undeveloped brain, right? Like not fully developed, right? And so this is why people say don't worry, you're in your 20s, right? Like I got a lot of that. I remember turning 30 and having a complete meltdown talking to my daddy saying, "Daddy, now you're going to expect me to grow up," right? And he was like, "Yes." Right, yeah, yes. Now that you're approaching 30, we expect you to grow up. So there's certain things that we can excuse in our 20s. In our 30s and 40s, how much patience am I to have with someone who is unhealed?
Okay. Let's talk about it. So the basis of what's it, season 6 now?
Yes.
I remember. Hey. So I feel like the basis or the theme of season 6 is going to be communication. I think we established that on multiple episodes leading up to this one today. So now we're in our 40s, mid 40s. It ain't late. We're in our mid 40s.
Mid.
And having that patient, whew, is a little different now, right? I think what I have been challenging in communication with women that I've been talking to is that, you know, we all have a past, we all have history. I'm not saying to dismiss what you've been through. That's experiences, knowledge that you've achieved or learned, whatever it may be, and going forward. But you want to leave that stuff behind. But one thing I say a lot is that whatever conversation you two may be having, try to look at things at a different perspective, right? Like you said a certain statement. Okay, now look at it from my point of view, right?
Mhm.
And don't be so. I think a lot of people are so quick to respond. It's like, wait. This hear me out for a second, right? Just hear me out. I want you to look in from my point of view and how that seems, and I want you to think about it just a different way. Not saying I'm saying something right or you saying something wrong. I'm just asking you to look at it a different way and think about it. Now, how long am I going to do that? Not long at all, because at this point now we're both grown, right? Almost close. We're closer to 50 than anything, right?
Amen.
So I'm not going to sit
Right.
here and try to baby you and try to get you to look at things totally different now that we're close to being 50. I don't have. I guarantee I don't have another 40 years on this earth. Let's call it what it is. Most people don't live to 100 plus. So therefore, I know I got maybe 40 years, maybe 40. And I'm not going to take that time wasting time, right? Not that I'm saying I'm trying to rush into anything, but we have to just, you know, live today like there's no tomorrow.
And I love that, I was writing down what you were saying. The main thing was seeing things from another person's perspective, and I completely get that. This is something I've actually used with. I used to have a staff of 13, and we used to do weekly lessons. And one of the lessons I actually did was about communication and perspective. And what I did was I showed them this figure online, and there's basically a figure standing on each side of a number. One is a 6 and one is a 9, right? One person on one side sees the 6 and the other person on the other side sees the 9. And they are both right, because from their angles, it is a 6 and it is a 9. So seeing another person's perspective is important. I think for me, here is my challenge, and I'm going to take it really personal. having dealt with someone who had extreme mother wounds, like extreme mother wounds, I try to be as patient. I try to be as loving. I try to be as caring. I try to do all of the things that you think that you're supposed to do when you love somebody and you recognize that they've got some ish that they need to deal with. And we all have ish that we need to deal with. I paid to deal with my ish. I've had therapy, I've gone to church, and I have a really good support system in my friends and family, right? Like I am truly blessed in so many ways to be able to have that. And so understanding that I utilized everything that I had to try to love someone through their healing, and that takes a lot out of you. And I think that's the part for me that no one talks about, right? Everyone sees it as if you love someone and they're going through something, your love is supposed to guide them through and you're supposed to help them through it. No one talks about what a toll that takes on the person loving you through that healing, right? Because they have their battle wounds and they have their scars, and they have to be the person, they're the person you're lashing out at when you're coming to some of the realizations that you're coming to. You know, when a mother has mother wounds, right? Like he's not going to go cuss out his mama. It is not very often, especially a black man. I only date black men. I don't know how white men and other men deal with their mamas. But I tell you, black men are just not out here cussing off their mamas. Not the ones that I know, at least. So even if your mother was a piece of crap and you realize as you go through this healing, my mother was a piece of crap. They're not going to pick up the phone and tell their mother, Mom, as I'm going through my healing process, I realized that you were a piece of crap. It's not going to happen. So what ends up happening is the woman who's trying to love you through that may be the butt of some of the crap that really the issues you're having with your mommy that you can't really have a discussion with your mommy about because she's your mommy. And so here you are trying to love somebody through healing and then being in some shit. That was a long path to get to where I'm going, but you know what I'm saying.
It's the mommy for me.
Yeah, it's like
Mom.
it's the mommy.
It's the mommy.
And here's the thing, you know what it is for me? And I think it's because I call my dad daddy. I always have, always will, even though he's gone. Rest in peace, daddy, right?
All right.
And it is that core fundamental mommy and daddy, because why? That's where we learn love. It's from our mommies and our daddy. Isn't it from mom or dad? We don't get to mom or dad generally until we're in our teenage years, right? Where you stop being called daddy and all of a sudden you're now dad and you're now mom, right? But those fundamental first 5 years, it's mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy, mommy, daddy, mom, to the point you're like, oh my God, right? That's your foundation of love. And so when I talk about it, even as an adult, I bring it back to those core because it is mommy or daddy. And it's not mom you have the issue with, it's mommy. You have the issue with mommy or daddy who are not there for you through those fundamental mental phases, who are not there to pick you up when you cried, who did not deal with your actual wounds when you have them, who you looked up in when you were playing basketball or baseball or American football or real football, like the rest of the world plays, and all of these other things. When you looked up and they weren't in that crowd and you were alone, your issue really is with mommy or is with daddy because daddy wasn't there. And now, as a 40-something-year-old woman, I'm dealing with decades of that. I'm not prepared for that anymore in my life. And I wouldn't expect a man to love me through all of that if I am not in a place where I even recognize what not dealing with that is doing to the person on the other side, right? Because you have to think about, I know that there are certain things for me that you have to deal with. Like I tell people, I'm spoiled. Period, point blank. Like I am spoiled, like a spoiled brat. Like even this week. like real spoiled, like super spoiled, right? Like my daddy spoiled me. My sister spoiled my big sister, who I was on this trip with. I basically didn't pay for anything. I paid for my flight to get there, and my sister paid for everything else, including while I was there. Right? Like I am the baby of the oldest, and I'm super spoiled. And therefore, I know that a man on the other side is going to have to deal with bits and pieces. I taper that a bit, but it comes out. My daughter says it all the time. And recognizing that there's certain things that I try to claw back, because you don't need to deal with all that. You are not my daddy or my sister. You are my man, right? And so, but I recognize it, but not recognizing that you have trauma, which a lot of people don't. They just act out. They act in ways that are destructive to their relationships, but then they don't apologize. I find, and again, this is how I always see it. Like, they don't apologize because somehow they feel, I'm looking for the word, because they have displaced anger, but they feel somehow that that anger is valid even though it's displaced. See what I'm saying? Like, I can be angry at the world because my mom didn't love me. I can be angry at the world because my dad wasn't around. I can be angry at the world because my parents didn't care. And even though it's displaced on the world and the people that didn't do it to you, they feel validated in that anger or in that pain, that you, as the person now who's supposed to love them through that, it's hard.
Is that entitlement?
I don't, here's the thing. I don't know if it's I don't know if I would call it entitlement. I think it's only entitlement if they recognize it and they own it and they're okay with just being assholes, right? Like, I feel like maybe that's a little bit of entitlement, right? Like, I think if you don't recognize it, that's one thing. And they're both dangerous. I think not recognizing it and maybe living through the anger and pain is one thing, but not even trying to recognize why you're so angry. Recognizing it and not doing anything about it because you feel validated in how you feel is another thing. And recognizing it, owning it, but then just being okay with it is something completely different. Like, there's so many different levels. Like, I want the person who recognizes it, owns it, and is actively working towards being better. That's what I want. That's, for me, that's what works. But I think that there's so many levels to this being unhealed that can really be a detriment to a relationship. So Mr. said, sorry, I realized that the way I put my camera, I have to move my TV set. But Mr. said, like Twin said, I'm 40 and 8, got another 40 years to wait for you to grow up. Get your overgrown ass into therapy and leave the rest of us alone. That is my reaction, Mr. Like, that's literally from me. When Twin said it last week, I started scratching because I was just like, therapy, like, people, but we all know that not everybody within the Black community as a whole believes it. And then when you start breaking it down into ethnicities and nationalities, right? Like, I can tell you, Jamaicans, you don't go to therapy, you go to church, right? My mother would be like, what's wrong with you? God church, God a pastor. Like, it is one of those things. So therapy, I think, often is not the go-to because culturally or religious-wise, you just don't go to therapy. But when you go to the doctor, when you're sick, you go to the doctor, right? When you have a toothache, you go to the dentist, right? Like, there are just certain things that we do that we have to change our mindset above the concept of therapy. And Mr. says also, fellas, don't waste your time being the first good man this woman has ever been with. She just gonna treat you like every other dude that wasn't shit in her past. Focus on the healed woman. That is an interesting comment, and I wanna stay there, Mr. I really wish you would click the link in the comment section and come on, because I definitely want to explore that, because that's how we kind of got started last week, was the idea of a woman basically being unhealed in many ways and trying to have a relationship with that woman. I can speak from a woman's perspective trying to have a relationship with a man. I want to hear from the man's perspective, because what I seem to get more from men is there seems to be a lot more unhealed women. At least that's what the consensus is on the internet, that there's a bunch of us as Black women walking around unhealed and unhinged in many ways. So I want to hear from the men. What is it like when you meet a woman who's got all of the on paper stuff that could make for a good relationship, but she's got some baggage that she needs to deal with? How does that impact you? And how quickly do you to the left her to move on to somebody else?
So it depends if that person, that lady, let's be clear, not person, but lady, is willing to really listen and hear me out as far as that concern goes, right?
Okay.
So when you speak of some, we talk to a lady, that has baggage from previous relationships. Now they go into this new relationship with you with all these things that they have to do first before anything can happen, right? You got check box, and I'm gonna do this, and then I'll do this. And if you don't do that, then I ain't doing this. And once again, we're grown, right? So it's like, why do I gotta jump through all these hoops for whatever it may be, right? There's no end goal. I mean, I don't have a certain thing, but why do I have to jump through so many hoops before we can move forward in a relationship, right? So it's like, maybe you should step back and deal what you have dealt with in the past before going to a new relationship. Because all you're gonna do is push me away because I don't have time for all the games. Because that's how I look at it. Oh, I'm not doing this until you show me this.
Mm-hmm.
What? I said, so, okay, I'll use one example, right, that we all can relate to, right? And I hate to jump directly to this, but let's have this conversation. So, sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, women will have, older women now I'm talking to, will have these stipulations. Oh, before I have sex, I need to do X, Y, Z. But I'm like, well, first off, are you a virgin? No. Okay. Okay. All right. You have a kid? Okay. Were you married? You were married, but you didn't have a kid by the married, but by the person. Okay. All right. So your body counts under 10, right? Oh no. So you're telling me that I need to jump through all these hoops before I can get to the cookie, but the guys that wasn't trying to court you or be with you, like I'm trying to be with you, I'm trying to work into a steps a future with us, you're making me jump through these hoops for something that's not brand new. Like, what's so special about your cookie that I got to jump through hoops to get it, right? And it comes off harsh that way, but that's what it is. I'm like, I don't have time for these games because now you playing games with me. I don't have time for that. And granted, yes, it's not always about sex. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna speak to something that everyone can relate to. Women will have a fun college, mid-20s, whatever, and then when they get to a certain age, now they want to be serious, and now they want to be reserved. No, I don't want reserve. I want the same young girl you was back then because I'm having the same fun. All right, I digress.
I'm still on the use. Okay, so you feel as if the more hurt a woman gets, the more hoops she's put in place for other men who didn't hurt her to jump through to get to the core of who she is. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, and I like how you clean that up. So beautiful and elegant. I like that. But yes, to get the core to know you, I got to jump through all these hoops. Why? And why didn't you get this taken care of as counseling? Like that's what we say therapy. Like, so I mean, you're quick to jump into a new relationship and you want all these things to be done first, but what have you done to work on yourself?
Well,
And look from my point of view, if you're making me jump through, so how look from my point of view. I'm looking at it as chat box. Now, mind you, as a man, I don't mind playing the game. So, like for example, like that 3 month rule, whatever. If I find out that's what you're really doing, guess what? I'll play that game with you, right? Day 91, I get the cookie, then I'm out. Game over. You want to play games? I can play too. And now you mad now because I did what I was supposed to do. I know. See, life is not a checkbox. You know what I'm saying? Like you can plan things out. Okay, I'm gonna graduate from high school. I'm gonna go to college, get this degree. After the degree, I'm gonna get a job, kids, X, Y, Z. Everything is not gonna line up perfectly how you want it. Go with the flow. Live life. Stop having all these high standards for something that's unrealistic.
But we say to have standards. Listen, I preach standards on this show. I think a woman has to have standards so a man can reach them. If you have no standards, what is he going to reach? But to your point, I'm curious about that whole 90-day rule thing, right? I think a lot of women have instituted some type of rule when it comes to giving up the cookie in a relationship. Now, if a woman tells you straight up, listen, like you, I think you're cool, but until we're in a relationship, I'm not having sex with you. Do you think that's a game?
I don't think that's game. I think that's fair to a certain extent, right? But now on the flip side of that, okay, cool. But don't expect me to give you all the full benefits of being the man that you want me to be if I gotta, navigate through certain things, right? So, like for example, this one lady I was talking to, she said, a boyfriend can't tell me how to dress
Oh,
because he's not my husband. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I said, like, okay, so that means that because I'm not your husband, I don't have to walk on the outside of the street when we walk now. I don't have to open your door. I don't have to pay for your meal. I don't have to protect you if some dude comes up and grabs your ass or whatever to you. I don't have to, because guess what? I'm not your husband. Got real quiet on the phone call. Chirp, chirp. Hello? Are you still there? Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm sorry. Because I'm not your husband. But I said, but if you want to know if I am husband
material.
I'm gonna show you who I am so you already know what you're getting, right? I'm and I tell everybody this conversation all the time. As far as men, we're naturally, most of us, once again, I never speak in absolute, most of us are natural protectors. If me and you were just at the Carabana, just having a good old time, party time, when you're not in a relationship, we just hanging out, having a good old time, and somebody comes up to you, or do come to you and being disrespectful to you, right? Like there's a difference, dancing, whatever, but he's being like, he's trying to pop your chest out, whatever. I'm gonna jump in there to alleviate that situation because I can look in your face as you're uncomfortable. Now that can lead to whatever may happen, but I'm just a natural protector by default, regardless if you're my woman or woman or not. I'm gonna do my best to alleviate because I know how men think. I know how evil men can be. All right, I will land my plane.
And Mr. Before I actually say something to that point, he said, too easy. Until we're in an exclusive relationship, I'm not spending any money on you. Ladies, the men are talking. I guess nobody would spend money on me in that case, but we'll get to that later. Here's what I think the difference is. Women are conflating standards and just stupid ass rules, right? Like a boyfriend shouldn't tell me how to dress is a stupid ass rule. Like that's not a standard. A standard is wanting a man who is university or college educated. A standard is wanting men who's gainfully employed without having a criminal record. A standard is not wanting to date any man who's had multiple children out of wedlock or with multiple women. That is a standard. A standard is, wanting certain character traits like integrity and loyalty and honesty and all of those things. Saying that a man can't tell you what to do until he makes you his wife, that's not a standard. You've just created a stupid ass rule for yourself that the reality is, to Twin's point, if he says the opposite of that, because you never think about it from the man's perspective, it just sounds dumb, right? Like that's not a standard. But I definitely think that women should have standards, and if you don't have some, you should get some. But here's the problem. I'm gonna bring it to a lot of women are unhealed because they didn't have standards in the first place, and they gave themselves to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that came around, and now they're unhealed from everything that Tom, Dick, and Harry came to them. So when Walter comes with, I don't know why I just named this man Walter, but when Walter comes with his education and his intention and all of that, she doesn't recognize Walter because she's been going around without her standards with every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Message.
That's what happens. And it happens to men too, believe it or not. When he, you know what a lot of men fail to recognize, and I think that there's a lot of bad advice, and I'm going to say this every week. There's a lot of bad advice on the internet, right? There is the thinking, right? There is this thought that a man, despite how many children and baby mothers he has, that there is a woman out there for him. Now, I'm going to start with, there probably is a woman. Is it a good woman and the woman he wants? Very unlikely.
That's two different things right there. That's
two different things.
Yes.
Right? There is no way I am going to pick up. I have learned my lessons, not even two children's mothers. Like, I'm not even doing two. Like, I'm not doing two. I am doing one, right? You have had multiple children. Even if it's multiple children, you've had them with this one woman. So there's only one woman I will ever have to deal with when it comes to your child or children. So there's this school of thought that a man can have as many baby mothers as he wants and all of these children and not marry them, and there's going to be some good woman who comes in who wants to be in his life. That is untrue. Will he get women? Absolutely. But they're both unhealed. And you cannot tell me a man who's decided to go out and have babies with all of these different women is a healed man. So that should honestly be clue number one, ladies. Because it is now for me, right? Clue number one is a man who comes in and he has multiple children with multiple women, none of whom he married. I can understand, again, having the first one that didn't working out, but being intentional the second time, getting with the woman, marrying her, having a child or children, and then getting a divorce. That I will give it to you. But one child's mother, two child's mother, three child's mother, four child's mother. Ladies, why would you even have him breathe on you at this point? Because his track record has shown that he's a faulty decision maker. Because these are all choices. Like, these are choices to have unprotected sex with all of these 1, 2, 3, 4 women that you're not in committed relationships with. Because I always say, if you've got these many women have babies for you, how many got pregnant and didn't have the babies? Right? So let's say 4 had the babies, maybe another 4 didn't have the babies, because that does happen. And so there are signs to me when a person isn't healed. And if you're going to put yourself in a situation with a person who is unhealed, can you be mad when they start exhibiting the characteristics of an unhealed person? I really want people to think about that.
Let that marinate for a moment there.
Can you be mad?
No,
you saw it. You saw it. Like, they presented it. Like, I can tell you, I saw certain things in my partner who was unhealed. I saw them, and I really thought that I could love that person through these issues. I thought all they needed was a good woman to love them through their issues. All they needed was that woman who's going to show them the type of love they should have received from the one person who in their life that's supposed to love you unconditionally, your mama. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be that substitute. I'm going to tell you, loving that person took everything out of me. At some point, I felt like I had nothing left because they were really good at taking. They were not as good at giving it back, at least in the way that I received. Sorry, twins.
No, you're fine. I mean, and that's something you need to recognize as well. If you're for you, like you just said, you poured into this person and it drained you all the way to the end, right? My question is that, even though you was pouring into this person, were they pouring into themselves? Did you see that they were putting the work in as hard as you were putting the work in? Because that should have been something you to call, like, you know what? Why am I going extra hard trying to do X, Y, Z? But the main person who's dealing with the trauma or whatever it may be is not doing nothing to try to help themselves out. Like, you have to first help yourself before you can ask for help or expect someone to help you, right? I think that's fair. Show me that you put effort in, and I have no problem jumping in and lifting you up and being your support or being AKA your helpmate.
I love that. And it's funny because they say it, I mean, I was just on a plane, right? They say that on the plane all the time. That's the instruction. If you're with other people, make sure that you put on your oxygen mask before you try to put on somebody else's oxygen mask, right? Like make sure you get your floating device before you try to help somebody with theirs. You have to do that. So here's my question for you. So you meet this woman, she's a really good woman on paper. Ideally, she looks great to you, but you can recognize that she has some unhealed trauma. What signs would you have to see in that woman for you to say it's a go? This is somebody worth pursuing. Because despite this stuff over here, I'm seeing these signs that are a signal to go forward with this.
I will have to listen to this self-awareness, meaning that that person will catch their self. Like, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Or let me do something different this
Mhm.
time. I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't mean for it to come out that way. Like, they're self-correcting before I correct.
Mhm.
What you say? And then, oh, you know what? I didn't mean that way. Let me explain it a different way. Right. And this is all based on communication, right? So that's how I would see it, is based, because, or I mean, in actions too, of course, depending whatever it is. So actions and communication, they gotta go hand in hand. You just can't tell me you're gonna do something. I have to see you in action, right? But if you have a problem with how you talk to people or how you demand certain things, then of course that's gonna come from communication. And I'm gonna see how you can correct it. And if I tell you 1 week or so, I don't like how you tell me something in that certain tone, and then the next week you're still doing it, and you're not even catching it. I didn't know I was doing it, but I keep telling you, but you're still doing it this way. So do you care what I say about X, Y, Z? And if you keep doing it, okay, you don't care. You're not even trying. You're not even trying to make sure you don't do anything that could rub me the wrong way, right? I'm not gonna say hurt feelings because it ain't that deep, but I'm just giving an example. Like, yeah, you rub me the wrong way. Like, can you stop doing that, please?
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. I had to write down the self-correction one because I think that's huge, right? Because I think that's truly recognizing you got some itch, right? Like again, I think it's just to your point, are you dealing with your own ish? Because healing is a constant journey. You don't go to therapy for a year and then you come out, they give you some certificate that says you're healed. Like that's just not how that works, right? Like it's a continual journey that you're on. You're continually, like you said, gonna catch yourself when you find yourself in situations where you're like, you know what? I don't normally handle this well. So let me step back and think about this, right? And it's okay to say to someone, normally in this situation, I haven't necessarily reacted well. Give me some time for me to think about your question or whatever is going on in that time. That to me shows growth. That to me shows self-reflection. But the person who I don't like people who listen to respond and not to understand. They never take the time to reflect on anything that's said. They're always quick to respond, which tells me that they weren't even taking in what I was saying and filtering it through and evaluating what I was saying. They just heard something, it triggered them, and they're ready to respond to that thing and not to the entirety of what it is that I just said. And so, as much as I'm gonna say, I'm gonna answer the question I even posed tonight. I don't think you can love a person through their healing. I think it is possible to love an unhealed person. You can absolutely love an unhealed person. I don't think you can love somebody into healing. that is something that they're going to have to want to do for themselves because it takes work. And the question is, does the person actually want to do the work? Because despite that, on the other side, something amazing might be there. There's some people who are not interested in the work it takes to get to the other side, to get to that healing. Because I think, honestly, twins, for some people, they prefer victimhood. Victimhood is great for them. It's always somebody else's fault. I'm this way because I didn't have a dad in my life. I'm this way because my mother father didn't love me. I'm this way because I grew up in foster care. I this way because I was adopted. I'm this way because my mother or father never showed up to any of my games. Like, it's always someone else. And even though they're 20, 30 years removed from those situations, like, when's the last time you really looked out in a crowd to see if your mommy or daddy was there? Like, I think the last time I did that was for my university graduation in 2001. So we're talking about 23 years ago, that I actually looked out into the audience to see my daddy, right? And see his face. And it was amazing. But I have not looked out and I've done many a things. I've accomplished many a things in 23 years. And never once did I look out for my mommy and daddy in 2 decades to say, oh my God, they need to be here to validate what I'm doing. So for me to turn around 20 plus years later and look at a man who's trying to love me and say, I act this way towards you because when I was growing up, my mommy or daddy were just not around for these, important monumental moments of my life. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's honestly, ladies, that's something that I would say, you want to run from that. You as a grown man, you don't want to ever reference something like that. Because I was a kid. I'm 42 years old. I couldn't imagine myself saying, "Oh, because my dad wasn't there when I was playing high school football, I suffer from lack of confidence." What? What? No, like, no, that's never.
Doesn't work.
Now, you can say that, because my father wasn't there and I know what it felt like from not being there, I will
Mm,
be a better man slash father to my son when he does play football, that I'm there every time or any chance I get. Now, that's a difference. That's a healing, right? That's self-reflection and healing at the same time. Not this, oh, woe is me. You know what? I'm gonna be a better version that my dad wasn't, so I could be a better version to my son, so he doesn't go through the same pain that I felt when I was a little kid. Does that make more sense now?
that makes a lot more sense. And that's what I was talking about, even in that clip that I played, right? Was about the people who own and recognize that. And before I go into that, Mr. is just saying these people are vampires, bloodsuckers of the heel. And I do believe that. Like, I feel like there are people who, it's almost like the misery does really like company with some of these people. Like, misery truly does like company, because there's some people, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you try to support them, no matter how much you try to be patient with them, like I said, they are just happy in their victimhood. They're happy being the victim. It's always everybody else. They don't get things because of their race. They don't get things because of their gender. They don't get things because of their religion. They don't get things because of their weight, their height, their whatever. Like, if there's a reason that they can say why someone didn't give them something, they're going to point to it, and they're never going to self-reflect and decide that maybe it's me. Right? Like, I always say, I am the common denominator in all of my failed relationships. So for me to walk away from a failed relationship and always point the finger at the other person, something is wrong with me. I have to look and say, if I've had 5 failed relationships in the last 20 years, there's got to be something wrong with me and choices that I'm making, that I've had 5 failed relationship with 5 different men. It
That's
can't
true.
always be them.
Mhm. And that's an example of you doing self-reflection. You realize, like, you know what? It may not just be them. It may be something that I'm doing.
Oh no, it's a lot of me. I've always known my failed relationships were a lot of me. I wrote a book about it called No Handouts for Black Girls. Shit, it's not even. Let me make sure that banner is thing so you guys can like,
Yeah, I get
subscribe,
that
and
plug.
support. Like, okay, let me get the plug up here, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
start book again. Go ahead.
right? Okay, like I wrote about it in my book. There is a chapter in my book that's called "You're Single Because You're a Bitch."
Oh,
It hurts, but it's true. Like literally, that is the title of the chapter of the book. And I've done a lot of self reflection in my life and recognize that I sit in this place that I am through a lot of fault of my own because of choices and decisions that I've made that in the moment seemed great. But if I had actually sat and thought them through, I would have known, no, girl, that's not probably the best decision for you. But I mean, I guess it made a good story to tell, but I'm done with the good story. So I think I'm the first. And in my next book, I'll talk about like a little bit of that. Too, in terms of, taking a look at some of the decisions I've made and owning and realizing that I effed up. And I always say to people, I don't make mistakes, I make choices. And I think that's another thing. Like I hate when people use that word. Well, it was just a mistake, was just a mistake. No, it was a choice, right? Like, a child learning math and not understanding that 1 plus 1 equals 2 and thinking it equals 3 because they're just learning how to do mathematics is one thing. But as an adult, choosing a particular partner, making certain life choices, we did not make mistakes. We literally had to take information that we had, utilize that information, filter through it to come up with a choice. And we generally have more than one choice. It's where they're called choices: go in this direction, go in this direction, or stay still. I think those are the three choices that we generally have as adults. Door A, door B, or just stay still. Stay exactly where you are doing what you're doing. And when we go through either the doors or we stay still, that is a choice that we have made. It is not a mistake. And so I think that's one of the things for me, I think that I start seeing as a red flag when people use, always say the word, oh, I made a mistake. And I'm like, no, you made a choice. So own your choice. And it might not have been the best choice, but it was your choice. Anyways, now I'm rambling.
well, let me
Sorry,
ask you this.
somebody's texting me on and I'm really annoyed.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. So let me ask you this. So, since we were talking about self reflection, is there something that you have reflected on from yourself from a previous relationship? It don't gotta be the last one. It could be any relation you have. Can you name something that you had self reflection on? Like, you know what? It was me.
I would say going into a situation knowing that it wasn't what I wanted, but I wanted the man so badly that I thought that I could deal with the situation that I didn't want.
Mm, that's
Yeah.
is that the
I had,
same?
yeah, I wanted the man really badly. So I wanted the man. I didn't want the situation that came with the man and everything that the man came with, but I wanted the man. And I convinced myself that I could do with the situation. And you are in something and you start realizing that you can't deal with it, but then you feel like you're in too deep. And so you're trying to make it work, even though it's just the puzzle pieces aren't fitting. But if you can just do this, and this, everything will be fine. I've done that a couple of times. Um, I've tried to fix some things that just were not mine to fix, if that makes sense. They were not my situations to fix, they were theirs. But I'm a fixer. um, that is something that my girlfriends have had to rein me back in from being the fixer. A girlfriend of mine actually told me, I like, she feels like if a man doesn't have something to fix, I get bored. Because what am I going to do? Like, what use am I? Because now I can't fix you. I can't fix whatever's wrong with you, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I think those are the things that I've had to learn. that for me, this is why things are failing, because I'm going in eyes wide open, realizing that this is not a situation that is ideal for me, but wanting the man in the situation so much that I've convinced myself I can deal with the situation, even though I know that I really can't.
So is that something that you struggle with when you go into any relationship, that you look for something that you try to fix to make it a challenge? And by you looking for something, and then let's say you do fix it, does that kind of sizzle after you did the fixing?
I like being a fixer. I'm a fixer at work. I see a problem at work. I try to fix it and make it better. Like processes and procedures. There's something wrong. So we got to fix the process and procedure. So I need to come up with a new process and procedure to make things more efficient. And I feel like that's almost what I do in my life, but that's not my job, right? Like that's not what I'm supposed to do. And so that's something that I've had to unlearn and be okay with, somebody who is healed and who is whole and who doesn't need fixing and who just wants to love and take care of me and who's got this, but knows that I can be his co-captain, but I don't need to at any time steer the ship because he's got this. And I'm trying to be more comfortable in that space. And I've had to recently remove myself from a situation, the one that's texting me on my phone right now, because I felt myself slipping back into fix it mode. Yeah, and it was a little. I won't lie. It was a little hard for me not to. I sort of kind of went into fix it mode, and then I stepped back and said, may God and peace be with you. You got this. Power to the people.
Can't fix everything.
I can't fix everybody, and I would like to. So that was my lesson, and maybe that was even my own toxic trait that I didn't even realize was a toxic trait, was wanting to do that, and then not realizing how drained it then left me. And so I always had to have a bit of a reset moment for myself, because it was like I was always in that mode. And then when I got too exhausted, then I'd have to step back and then I'd have to reset, because I didn't want to, inflict any of pain on the new person by stuff from the old person. So you always then need to do a reset. So I take these kind of long breaks in between relationships just to make sure that I'm not bringing my unhealed backside to you. But there's an impact to me, right? Like, along that journey, probably some great men have passed me, and I'm like, I'm not ready. I've got to heal from this. But the reality, I keep having to heal from something because I keep putting myself in a situation that I know I shouldn't be in. And so I've had to learn. And these are not bad men. So let me be clear, they're not bad men. They're just men that have some ish going on that I think that I can help with, that the reality is I can't, because it's not my problem to fix. It's theirs. Like, they can't fix. If I had daddy issues, which thank God I do not, thank the Lord I do not have daddy issues. But if I had daddy issues, there is nobody that would be able to fix my daddy issues but me. Like, I would have to fix my daddy issues, and then maybe my daddy, right? Like, these would be the people who would be able to help me fix my daddy issues, me and my daddy. Not me and some next man who's just trying to love me. So again, I'm going to say, I think you can love an unhealed person, but you can't love them into healing.
All right. Totally understand.
Let me see what, I'm just waiting for the comment from Mr. to pop up on my TV screen, because it's very small on my phone. So it's popping up now. He said, like I said, you both have to be starting off as two healed people before you start investing time into the therapy of the other person. If it's not starting from that, move the fuck on ASAP. Here is the thing that I actually think would be important, because we're a show about intentionality here. If you're intentional with being in a relationship with someone and you already see signs of there being potential issues, I would say suggest couples therapy, right? Because therapy is not only there to fix an issue, right? It is also there to ensure you can recognize if an issue, something could be an issue before it becomes an issue, right? So I think one of the things is if you do meet that amazing, wonderful person and you say, you know what, like they could be so great, but they've got these things going on. And I want to ensure that I am equipped with whatever I need to be equipped with in order to be able to have a flourishing relationship with this person. I would suggest couples therapy and be like, hey, babe, I would suggest that we go in couples therapy because I want to make sure that we are armed with everything that we need to have a successful relationship and see how that person responds. If my partner's like, no, 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 I'm not crazy. You're not going to do that shit to me. I'm going to tell you right now, twins and Mr. And for all of you watching, it's a no. It's an automatic no for me. It's an automatic no for me. Like, because you're already so closed off to creating a healthy relationship, because all I'm suggesting is making sure that we create a healthy relationship. If you're already closed off to that, you and I are just not equally yoked, as we talked about also on another show recently. We're just not equally yoked. But if my partner's like, you know what, I think that's a great idea. And then maybe when you're in couples therapy, that might lead to that person doing individual therapy, because while in couples therapy, they recognize that there's some things that they need to work on their own without you, right? That they know will help us, but it's still a them thing. It's a thing that they have to do for themselves. I think that's a great way to get your partner into therapy without saying your ass needs to go therapy. So seeing how they respond to that, I think, if we are saying that we're intentional about being in a relationship, about being married, about doing life together, especially for people like us twins who will be on our second marriage the next time we get married, I want to ensure that I'm armed with everything that I can to make this time forever. And I want to ensure that the partner that I have is just as invested in what it is that I want out of this relationship. And if they're not, I want to know that sooner than later. I am not spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years trying to. I'm learning that almost within the first 3 months where their head is at, because I can decide and make decisions and move on. That's kind of
fair.
where.
That's fair.
That's where I'm at. So I would say for those of you who have missed out on a good person because you recognize that you have some undesirable traits, I would say take yourself off the dating market and go and fix those. Go and get help for those undesirable traits, and make sure the next time you decide to be in a relationship that you are your best self, because that's the one thing I can say. One of the lines that my previous partner used that really got me is we were in a conversation. Okay, hold on. You saying, ha, okay. So I am ready for this comment. Okay, waiting for it to again pop up on my, because I saw twins pointing at it, so it clearly means I need to read it. So Mr. and Mrs. says, as a person who has been to therapy, I highly recommend therapy. However, men beware. There are a lot of unhealed therapists, men and women, who are biased against men. Find a good one who's impartial. 100% agree. You need to interview your therapist, right? Most therapists, I can't say all over, I can speak specifically in Toronto, but a lot of therapists, from my understanding, do give your first session free or at a reduced rate, to see whether or not you guys are even compatible. Like sometimes there's cultural differences, right? Like sometimes there's all of these different things that you need to figure out. And also, one of the questions you need to ask your therapist is, who's their therapist? Because a good therapist also has a therapist. Because imagine you seeing 30, 40 people, different people a month, right, who are unloading their trauma dumping on you. Who do you go and dump on? You have to have somebody. So if you have a therapist who says, oh, no, 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 I don't go to therapy, buyer beware, because I would not trust a therapist who does not go to therapy. And it is important that you actually have um, a good rapport with your therapist. And it's okay to also ask your therapist questions, right? Find out about their family life. Find out about their brought up. See, I was going to say it's very Jamaican. Find out about how they grew up. Find out about their marriage. Are they married? Have they ever been married? Their divorce. Like, it is okay to have that, because you are entrusting this person to help guide you into a new phase of your life. You know, your post-therapy phase, if you do therapy right, it's almost like you have a pre-therapy and you have a post-therapy phase. Yes, Jamaica. I'm going to say Jamaica, 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 Jamaica. Okay. It's like you have a post-therapy, a pre-therapy and a post-therapy life. And you're supposed to come out post-therapy a more enlightened version of yourself. And you cannot do so if you do not feel comfortable with your therapist. But going back to my points earlier, I think one of the things that my ex said to me that will stick with me, and is something that I appreciate him saying to me, is when we were getting together, he looked at me and he said, "You deserve my best." I will never forget that. He said, "You deserve my best." And I go into every relationship now with that mindset. Any man that I am with next, he deserves my best as I deserve his. And you really again need to ask yourself, am I at my best for the person that I want? And if the answer is no, I would suggest you figure out how you get to that best. And let's be clear, it's not just so you can be in a romantic relationship, but every relationship that you have, if you are unhealed, is damaged, whether that be in the workplace, whether that be familiar relationship, whether that be your besties, whatever relationship you end up in, if you are unhealed, it is going to be impacted, right? Very impacted. And so you really have to think about, am I in the best place to get everything I want out of life? Even if you take the relationship out of it, am I in a healed place to get that promotion? Am I in a healed place to even get that degree and be impactful in my career? Am I in a healed place to be a parent? Am I in a healed place to give advice to my friends? Like, really, where are you? So for me, I think that's important, and I can truly say that I am in a healed place. Thank God, hallelujah, again, for therapy and church, and my great support system. I'm definitely in a healed place for anybody who comes into my life, and healing is continual. I'm always healing every single damn day. Mr. said, my therapist was a track star in college on a full scholarship. She specialized in the high jump. I love the fact that you know that. And then Twins added, she's a runner, she's a track star. Literally. She's literally she's literally a runner and a track star. And Mr. has a really good comment that will be up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He says, I tend to find a lot of athletes have a healed mindset. I think because they have thrived in a world based on meritocracy rather than a world based on tiptoeing around sensitive people's feelings. That is true. As an athlete myself, I can tell you, I ran track for many years. Yeah, we don't get to tiptoe around foolishness. We don't do participation badges. Shit, didn't do participation badges with my child. Somebody tried to give her a participation thing. I'd say, throw the shit out of this car. Like, you do not bring that crap home. If you weren't on the podium as first, second, or third, we don't want it. It means you lost. It means you were not good enough. It means you sucked. Basically, you got close, but not close enough. You suck. And so if you do not meddle, you do not bring crap into my house. That's how I raised my child, and she's thriving. So we're okay over here. But I agree. I feel like when you're in a space where people didn't have to tiptoe around you, that's interesting. And I was gonna end the show, but that's also important, right? Like I think a lot of the time we tiptoe around people's feelings in in a very negative way, because I think that there's a way to bring things to people to make them realize, you know what, you're very undesirable right now. But a lot of the times, I'm going to give it to men. I will go back to a conversation I had on the show when I started it with my ex, and he said something that was fundamentally important. He said, men do not like to hurt women's feelings. They especially don't like to hurt their woman's feelings. And so oftentimes what that turns into is a lot of y'all tiptoeing around the truth for us instead of being upfront and telling us when we're acting like bitchs, because you're not supposed to say that to your women. And so there's a lot of women running around with unhealed crap because, again, men don't want to hurt our feelings and they're not telling us you're undesirable. And so we take these undesirable traits when that relationship doesn't work and just bring it into another one where it's the opposite. As women, we have no problems telling you about all of your flaws, okay, all of your shortcomings, sometimes literally and figuratively. We will put it out there. But as men, you don't. And so I think sometimes that tiptoeing behavior has enabled some of this very bad behavior. I see you smiling and grinning over there. And Mr. just made another good point. Thank you, Mr. I'm still waiting for you to click the link so you can come on and we can hear your voice. Also, Mr., what city are you in? Because one of these days, Twins and I are going to end up doing a tour of this show. And we want to make sure that we are doing shows in the city that the people who come and support us are. So let me know what city you're in the chat. That would be great. But Mr. said you should have empathy for people. That I agree. No question about that. But you also have to know when to tell someone to cut the effing shit. That is also correct. How comfortable are you as a man, Twins, saying to a woman, cut the fucking shit?
Oh, I'm very direct. So no, I don't bite my tongue. So that would not be a problem for me. Yeah. Sorry.
How do you tell a woman like she's messing up? Is it very direct, like you're messing up and we're not gonna have this, or do you try to make it more subtle and more digestible for women?
I'll say something on the lines like, I'll give you the warning. It's like, hey, what you doing? I don't like. Right.
Okay.
I'm telling you now because I don't want to be an issue later on. But if you keep doing that, I'm telling you right now, you're going to push me away. Then I'm gonna shut down and I ain't gonna say nothing. And you don't want to about what's going on. But I don't want to. I don't have to keep telling you what you're doing. I don't like. So it'll be something on that line of communication to them.
How many times? At what point? Because again, you say something once, it doesn't penetrate. Is it a second? Is it a third? Or a fourth? At what point do you say, I've said enough of this and now I'm done?
So it depends how the person receives it, right? Like what I just said to you. If I got said 2 or 3 times, oh, you're not listening. You just, like you said, you're ready to respond, but you're not digesting what I'm telling you. So after a few times, I'll just get quiet. And then the conversation, like, oh, I'll talk to you later. All right, have a good one. And then I won't call you back. Like, I won't give you no energy. Like, I won't be texting you nothing. I'll just be done with you. Like, on to the next. I'm sorry. This is dating in 40 plus. I don't have time. I'm not testing nobody. I'm not testing you down. There's a lot of women out there who want to have a man. and how to treat a man. And if I see that you're not one of them, you know what? I'm not here. I have a daughter that I'm going to raise. I'm not raising no other woman that's not my daughter.
Oh.
On to the next. And I can't wait when my daughter start getting. I don't want to wait. No. Well, anyway, when she gets to dating, Daddy's gonna be there to give her all the tea, the black book, and everything. What we're going to say, I'm gonna give her everything to her. So I can't wait. But yeah, I don't got time to deal with any lady who's a mature woman who has kids of her own and don't know how to communicate and don't listen, just quick to respond. I don't have the patience for it. I just don't.
Listen, you just said a lot of things women wanted, well, maybe didn't want to hear, but needed to hear. I think that's fundamentally important, right? Like, I'm with you. I'm not here to raise a man. I am here to support. I will be your cheerleader. I will be your confidant. I will not be your mommy. I do not need you on the tit. I already had a child on the tit. I'm good with that. If you want me to be there in as many ways as possible, but I can't hand hold you through this thing we called life. I'm not there. I'm just not at that place. I'm with you. I'm just not at that place in my life that I can hand hold you through this part of life. We're too old. And I can love you and walk away.
Yes. I can love you, wish you the best, and I just keep it moving.
Like, and it's always interesting to, because that's harder than people think it is, right? Like, being able to just, because it's easier to, we know that some shit's going on and we're done. But to be able to say, I love you, I respect you, but I gotta go, it's a lot. Hold on. Okay, so Mr. said, after what Twins just said, I think that's why I don't like women calling me daddy. That shit makes me uncomfortable. I'm not trying to raise an adult.
Listen, just on that alone, that irks me too when a grown woman want to call me dad. I said, nah, call me poppy, something else. I have a daughter and she calls me daddy. So you my daddy? You're not. Sorry, no.
Yeah, that's always weird. That's weird. It's weird.
Give me a nickname. Just don't call me my baby. You know, I'm like, it didn't change for me until I had a daughter.
Weird.
When I had no kids, you call me daddy. Sure, I'll be your daddy. You know what I mean? I'll be all that. But now I have a daughter. I said, because she calls me that. You know what I'm saying? And it just feels different when she calls me versus a grown woman calling me daddy. Like, nah, I'm not your daddy. So let's stop right there. Give me another nickname.
It's weird. I've never needed or wanted to call another man daddy. That's what I call my actual daddy. That is ew.
Right.
Ew.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no.
Ew.
Please don't, ladies. Please don't.
And I guess that's why they've now changed it to Zaddy with a Z.
Right.
Because Zaddy makes more sense.
Yeah.
But like, I just could not wrap my mind around calling somebody daddy. I have a daddy. Like, I have an actual dad. And so now it's just, I'm like sitting around the table with my daddy and after, no.
Exactly. See? Awkward.
Absolutely not. Ladies don't do that. Like
it's not cute. Trust me, it's not cute. It's not cute at all.
Don't do that. I think a lot of women think it is cute. I wonder, like, again, I don't come from a place of daddy issues. I don't come from a place of not knowing what it's, what it's like to have a father. But I wonder if that comes from a place of not having a father and all that stuff like that. I guess when you've never had to call someone daddy.
The women who would try to give me that title of daddy didn't have a daddy in their life. And in a sense, they kind of had daddy issues as well. From the ones who did call me daddy.
That makes sense. Because if you've never called someone, like if you called someone daddy your entire life, I've been saying daddy, daddy, daddy since I still say daddy. I'm almost 45 and my father passed away less than 2 years ago and I still mention him all the time. I daddied that man to death. I didn't need another man to call daddy. I couldn't even imagine. Like, no. But again, this is what the show does. If you've never had the experience of calling a man growing up daddy, that's easier for you because you never have to worry about a daddy at the table because you don't have one. That's sad.
Well, all right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's sad. That's sad. Yeah. Oh, all right. We're done with that. Okay. Dating advice for the week. We're gonna start with you because I've been starting the last couple of weeks and I don't actually have one, so I'm waiting for you to do
That's perfect. I'm ready today. I got one today. I'm ready today.
it.
And this one's going to piggyback off what Minister said about the therapist. Women do want to get us fellas into the therapist to have the couples thing, which can be a wonderful and beautiful thing. But as Minister just stated, you have to be careful. I've been myself personally have been in plenty of meetings with psychiatrists, pastors, all that counseling, stuff like that. And
Mhm.
sometimes they can be biased. And now you in there being attacked by you trying to defend yourself about what's going on between you two, but then you got them giving their personal feeling and like, well, Dwayne, you know what I'm saying? You mean she has a point. It's like, I didn't come here to get double teamed in a sense. So it can definitely help out, but it can backfire. So, and as far as doing the research, it's going to take more than one session to really have
Mhm.
understanding. But you did hit on some notes by asking them, hey, have you been married before? And this is a question to your psychiatrist. Have you been married before? How long were you married? You know, kids. Like, these are questions you ask them so they can actually relate to what you're going through. Like, if I'm going to see a psychiatrist and she's never been married, you can't tell me nothing. I don't care how much degrees.
Yep.
You don't have the experience of
Yep.
being actually married and be committed to somebody to give me advice on that. So once again, I just want to say is that be careful when you do it, but just do your due diligence to do a lot of background research, as Ashiba explained, so you can pick the right one and get a great outcome for you and your lady.
Amen. I love that advice. So my advice would be I think it's important after each relationship to do some self reflection and recognize where you went wrong to ensure that you equip yourself with the tools to not make that mistake again with someone else. Um, Also, self reflect to ensure that you're not bringing baggage from your ex into the relationship with your next.
Mm,
And I think that's the key. A lot of um, women have trauma dumped on men that did not deserve the trauma dumping. And actually, that is what therapy is for. If you're going to trauma dump on a man, it should be your male therapist, not your man, right? Your therapist is supposed to give you tools to equip you to be able to effectively have a successful relationship with that person in your life. Your partner is not the person to trauma dump on. And so that's why, listen, I recognize that every time we give our hearts to somebody and that relationship does not go the way we want to, we take a bit of a hit, right? Some punches are going to just hit they're going to hurt more than the other. But the reality is, in order to find love, that's kind of what we have to do. We have to take those hits, we have to take those punches. But it doesn't mean that we take those punches and then punch the other person back, the next person that comes in our life, even though they haven't done anything. So, again, so my dating advice is every relationship, make sure that you're self reflecting. Determining, what do you need to improve upon before you get into the next relationship, and make sure that your next partner isn't dealing with the issues from your ex and you're not trauma dumping on a new person, because you're never going to be able to have a successful relationship with anyone, not even just a romantic relationship with anyone, if all you do is trauma dump. So that is our show. That is our advice. Make sure that you are liking, subscribing, sharing. We come here because we do want to change the conversation around Black relationships. And I'm going to repeat this every week. We have the link to the show in the comment section. So every show you watch us, come on, we want to hear your stories. We want to help, and we also could use some advice. Right, we are not immune to advice. I definitely could use some advice, especially since I'm no longer on these online dating streets and I have to meet people the real way. God forbid. So please feel free to join the show. Click the link, go in the backstage, and I will bring you into the show. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a disagreement, if you disagree with something I've said, Twin said, we're happy to hear it because we are all about respectful discourse.
Yes.
And if you have any topic ideas, please let us know. You can leave it in the comment section. You can email me at fyftheshow@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Fuck Your Feelings, the show, and DM us there. But until next time, until next week, I will have some Caravana fun for you next week. So watch out for the debauchery that will be happening in Toronto all weekend, starting Thursday all the way to Monday.
Nice.
So until then, twins, any last words?
Nope. Have a good night. Y'all be safe.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye. Bye.